Well, the Red Sox just made their first significant move in a little while now. The question is it a good one? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. I apologize for the delay on this video. I had other things going on, couldn't get to the studio, but we're talking about it now because this morning the Red Sox ended up trading John Schreiber to the Kansas City Royals. Now, this is actually the first significant thing the Red Sox have done in a little while. It's been basically since the addition of Lucas Giolito where we've had something legitimately to talk about that's going to impact the 2024 roster. The big question everyone's asking right now is whether or not this is a successful move for the Red Sox or not. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to break this trade down. We're going to talk about John Schreiber leaving, who's coming in, why or why not this trade makes sense, and we're ultimately going to try and figure out if right off the bat the Red Sox won or lost this trade, or if it's even possible to figure that out. But before we get into that, we are on the road to 10,000 subscribers. We are about 7,000 subs away. So if you're new here, help us get to that goal by hitting that subscribe button. We talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start by talking about the actual trade itself, which came out the exact moment I left my house for a significant period of time. I knew it was going to happen eventually, but either way, it is John Schreiber going to the Kansas City Royals in exchange for the Kansas City Royals pitching prospect by the name of David Sandlin. Now, David Sandlin is right now the 20th highest ranked prospect within the Kansas City Royals farm system, so not exactly a top 10 guy, definitely not a top 100 prospect, but he is in the Kansas City Royals top 20. It'll be super interesting to see where he ends up ranking in the Red Sox farm system, considering their lack of pitching depth, which we're going to be talking about in a second because it definitely has a big impact on whether or not this trade is a successful one. But let's talk about David Sandlin first. David Sandlin was drafted just a couple of years ago. In his first professional season in the Kansas City Royals organization, it was actually really successful between low A and high A because he spent most of his season in low A but had 2 starts in high A. I didn't really think it was appropriate to break him up because it was a small sample size. So overall, with his full first professional season, he had a 3.51 ERA with a 1.215 whip, so a little bit higher than you'd like, but still pretty decent at keeping batters off of bases during each inning. And he had a really impressive 11.7 K per nine with a pretty low 2.4 walks per nine. Who David Sandlin is essentially a big strikeout guy. In college and so far in his professional career, he's a guy who gets a ton of swing and miss. Part of that is because he's got a really nice fastball. When he was first traded over to the Boston Red Sox, that was basically the very first thing we heard about it. He has a high 90s fastball that sits above 95 miles an hour usually, but has hit 100 mile an hour multiple times over the course of his college and minor league career so far. It's a rising fastball that really works the top of the zone. He combines that with a splitter and a slider, which most scouts have said should be above average pitches that should continue to develop as he gets older and could be legitimate put out pitches at the major league level. You combine that with his pretty big frame at 6'4", 215, and he gets a lot of swing and miss. And there's a lot of swing and miss potential as he grows. He's already at 11.4 strikeouts per nine. The big question is whether or not he'll stick as a starter, right? Usually these high strikeout guys either end up in the rotation or they end up in the bullpen, right? At some point, you got to pick and choose. With scouts' predictions right now, he still hasn't really had a ton of experience in high A, and that's probably where he'll start with the Boston Red Sox. Scouts still believe that because he has that splitter and that slider, that both effective pitches at getting swings and misses, that he has a lot of potential to stick within the rotation. This is a pitching prospect who is basically a starting pitching prospect for the Red Sox, an area where they could desperately use it. If you're just looking at what the Red Sox got back in return strictly, I think this is a success. And the reason I think this is a success is because of the fact that this is the Red Sox biggest need right now. It's been the Red Sox biggest need for years. Basically, since Chaim Bloom took over, need within the Red Sox has been their farm system. It's also been their pitching farm system. They still don't have any top 100 pitchers or really any super crazy exciting pitching prospects coming up to the pipeline. The idea for Craig Breslow was to help bolster that pipeline, and this is doing exactly that. that, right? We've complained about it for a while. Now the Red Sox are actually doing that. So if we're looking at the return itself, this trade makes a lot of sense. But it's not just the return you have to look at. You also have to look at who the Red Sox gave up and how that's going to impact the big league club. Obviously, the person the Red Sox gave up in this trade was John Schreiber, and that's going to have an impact at the major league level. Now, last year, John Schreiber did have a couple of injuries, and when he was healthy, he wasn't exactly the John Schreiber we know and love. Over the 2023 season, he ended with a 3.86 ERA over 46 and 2/3 innings, a much higher 4.52 FIP, and a 1.141 WHIP, which led to a 118 ERA plus. So he was still 18% better than the average pitcher in the league, according to his ERA statistic. But at the same time, too, there were some concerns. John Schreiber was giving up a ton of hard contact last year that could point to some regression in his statistics. That's part of the reason why his FIP is so much higher than his ERA. And on top of that, too, he had the highest walks per nine of his entire career last year. But at the same time, just because John Schreiber had a bad season last year doesn't mean he's not a significant impact player or could have been a significant impact player with the Red Sox, because we know what peak John Schreiber looks like, and that is 2022 John Schreiber, where he had a below 3 ERA, and he was essentially your biggest high leverage arm. You needed outs to get to the 8th or 9th inning. You were going to John Schreiber. That's who he was. He was a fireball type pitcher. He would get fired up. He was a morale guy. He would dance in the clubhouse. It's going to suck for the Red Sox to lose a player like that. However, at the same time too, while I understand it could be a possible big impact loss for the Red Sox, it also might not be. Andrew Bailey and Craig Breslow trading him away clearly don't believe that they can get him back to what he was in 22. This is something that they have been probably looking at this entire offseason. Hey, who are the guys that we think we can get to another level? Who are the guys that we think we can fix? And who are the guys that we think, okay, this just might be who they are now? John Schreiber fell into that third category. It makes sense why, one, Craig Breslow was shopping him, and two, why they ended up trading him. Yes, this could be an impact for the big league club. Yes, this could have a negative impact for the big league club, and you are losing an arm in the bullpen, but on top of the fact that Craig Breslow and maybe Andrew Bailey, whoever was included in that, did not believe that they could get him back to 2022, this is also an area of depth a little bit for the Sox. We talked about this going into spring training, but this year's bullpen, especially the last couple of roster spots, are going to be an absolute battle. Trying to get into that bullpen as someone on this roster, either non-roster invitee or even on the 40-man roster, is going to be a fight. You're going to be fighting with every single person because there are just a ton of options right now. Being able to trade from an area of depth to supplement an area that you need desperately within the system as a whole, to me, is always a win when you're looking at this trade. So I look at this and I say, okay, well, at first I was upset about this. I think on the surface, you are making the 2024 roster a little bit worse, especially with what we know John Schreiber could be. But when I took a step back and I thought about it for a second, if the Red Sox were doing good, if the Red Sox did well last year, if they had the same offseason and they were projected to be, I don't know, middle of the pack, possibly fighting for a wild card spot, possibly winning the division with the team they had now, would you still want to trade John Schreiber to make this move? Or would you think this was a good move? I think I would, right? If the Red Sox had done their job this offseason, and maybe they got into Jordan Montgomery or someone else, and then they had traded John Schreiber, I think we'd all be sitting here saying, all right, this was a pretty solid move. I think this is the type of move that you do either when you are doing well or when you are doing poorly, because again, you are dealing from an area of depth to add to an area that you desperately need depth in. So we're looking at this trade overall, trying to figure out if it's a win for the Boston Red Sox. My gut, and obviously we probably won't know the absolute answer to this question until this guy Sandlin is at the major league level, or maybe you trade him to get another piece or whatever. So you're not going to know whether or not the Red Sox actually won or lost this trade for a little bit, but my gut is telling me the Red Sox did a good job here. And I know this sounds crazy because a lot of you guys are going to say, oh, they need to get proven talent. How is this impacting the big league club? But at the same time, too, we've been complaining about the Red Sox not having any pitching pipeline prospects for the last years, right? It hasn't just been this year. It hasn't been Craig Breslow taking over and us being like, man, he really needs to get on pitching. For a while now, we've said, where is the pitching? Where are we getting the pitching from, and this is how you get it. This is how you acquire pipeline pitching. You either do it through the draft, you do it through international free agency, or you make trades. And if you could do all three, you increase your timeline of that pipeline and those guys getting to Major League Baseball much, much faster. And for that reason, I think this was a win. Again, you take a look at all the bullpen arms the Red Sox have right now, and Johnny Leverage could have been really, really impactful. He also could have been exactly the same as he was last year, and he's a guy that you can replace. You can replicate his performance from 2023 in the bullpen. You can do that with players you already have on this roster. I love Johnny. I hope he does a really good job in Kansas City. I absolutely loved his fire and everything. I'm going to miss him with the Red Sox, but I don't think this is as bad as I think a lot of people thought it was, including myself upon initially looking at it. Now, before I hear the comments of, oh, they're cheap, they're tanking, one, this guy was worth $1 million. If they were going to trade someone to get rid of salary, it was going to be Chris Martin or Kenley Jansen. They didn't trade John Schreiber to get rid of salary. Two, this is really, again, it's replicable. You could put someone on this 40-man roster. You could take someone who's already on this 40-man roster and use them to replicate what John Schreiber was able to do. Clearly, Craig Breslow and Andrew Bailey and everyone involved, Alex Cora probably, right, feel as though they have enough to fill the void of what John Schreiber left. And for that reason, I'm going to say this trade was a win. But I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. So in the comment section down below, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the John Schreiber trade. Let me know what you think about the prospect coming in. And overall, do you like it or do you not like it? And what are your reasons why? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest Red Sox news in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. We are on the road to 10,000, like I said in the intro, so make sure you've hit that subscribe button if you made it to the end here. We talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It really does help these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.